you for joining us for our session today. Um, we are spotlighting the journeys of five women entrepreneurs in this session, Women with Wings. And all these women run very successful businesses in the US and India. And what's interesting about all of them is that they all went to IIT somewhere in the late 90s and then went on in the last 20 years to find and run their own successful ventures. Um, we'll start with a quick introduction. I am Aanchal Kumar. I graduated from IIT Delhi in 2001. And till last year, I was with Deloitte Consulting, which incidentally was also my campus job right out of IIT. But since then, I've ventured out a little bit as well, not into entrepreneurship yet, but now I work as in product development at Experian as a senior director. And moderating this session with me today is Aditi Sharma, who is also a IITD alumnus, a fellow Deloitter who, like me, spent 20 years. So I've been kind of following a little bit in her footsteps there. She was a couple of years my senior, and she's currently a go-to-market leader at Amazon Web Services. Also have Pradeep Khanna, another IITD alumnus, who is one of the Crown co-founders and the key driving force behind INSquare, which is bringing you this event today. And I'd like to kick us off by asking Pradeep to introduce himself and give a quick introduction about INSquare. Over to you, Pradeep.
Thank you very much, Anshul. And this is Pradeep from Sydney at 3 a.m. in the morning. Wishing you a very, very happy good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, or whatever it is in your part of the day. I am delighted to be here at yet another INSquare event on women entrepreneurs. And what is INSquare? INSquare is all about inclusive innovation in the new normal. It's an initiative which Anchal, myself, and a couple of other IIT Delhi people and similar minded people kick-started recently. And there are three areas of focus, which is the new normal, essentially talking of how the world has changed in the last 2 years and how that is impacting the way we live, learn, and work and socialize. The second component is innovation, how we've been required to adapt constantly to changing external environments, low probability, high impact events, and of course on inclusion, because it is not just about numbers and targets that we are talking about, but also about inclusion. And we will talk more about that. And there are a couple of initiatives from INSquare which are kicking off. We've got an initiative focused on women on STEM. We've got an initiative focused on people with disabilities. We've got an initiative focused on women and entrepreneurs. We've had an initiative already kicked off on women in ESG, and there are lots more coming. In regard to the session today, I just want to mention a few points. That in the new normal, there has been a significant increase in startup activity by a attitude or a terminology which is called creative destruction. When people have nothing else to do, but when they are sitting at home and involved with technology platforms, you see this burst of innovation coming through, and this has historically been shown time and again. However, I must differentiate between startups and small to medium enterprises, because small to medium enterprises have had a very mixed journey during the pandemic or the new normal, with some entities which are dependent on face-to-face contact absolutely closing down, and some entities which are related to technology or online activity absolutely taking on. And of course, to note that funding for startups in 2021 was 621 billion, and it almost double the level which was there in 2020, which is just an indication of the high level of startup activity happening during the pandemic. And just a few points on women in startups. And as my lovely colleague over here and one of the speakers, Pooja Goel, mentioned, that as per Crunchbase, out of 620 billion of funding towards startup, only 2.4% was towards women. And this is not something which has happened only in 2021, but that is the norm. The other issue is that the work life balance, especially for women, has actually just disappeared, and thereby making it more challenging for women to effectively follow career paths. Third is that you see what are the support systems for women entrepreneurs? They are actually non existent. Do they have the same level of networks that the men have? I'm sure it is not normally the case. And of course, last but not the least, is the patriarchal thinking of the society today and an unfavorable business environment. See, I mean, just imagine the social and traditional constraints which are placed upon women in this kind of a situation. So, therefore, we have to work towards, you know, supporting this and building this into a community. And with that, I hand it back to you, Anchal, and I look forward to a fabulous discussion today. Back to you.
Thank you, Pradeep. So I'll start with a warm welcome to our panel and a quick introduction of about each of our panelists. Today we have Pooja Goyal, who is the founder of Avishkar, which is a platform to support children learn technical skills like robotics and artificial intelligence. This is actually her third startup, the first couple of ones being Alliance and IntelliThoughts. And after studying chemical engineering in IIT, Pooja also did her MBA from NCR in France. Then we have Shilpi Sharma. Shilpi is the CEO of Quantum, which is an AI-based consumer intelligence and digital analytics company. Shilpi completed her MSc in physics from IIT Delhi and her MBA from UC Davis in California. And prior to her startup stint, Shilpi spent over 15 years in consulting and product development. Um, we also have Shivani Kapoor, who is the founder of Think Startup, and her venture is focused on building the spirit of entrepreneurship in children and youth. She is also a serial entrepreneur, and this is her second venture. Incidentally, the first one was IntelliThoughts with Pooja. And after graduating from IIT Delhi, Shivani also completed her MBA from IIM Calcutta. Then we have Meeta Sharma Gupta, who is the founder of Shumi Toys based in Bangalore, India. Before venturing out into the world of business, Meeta was a researcher with IBM TJ Watson, and Meeta completed her electrical engineering from IIT Delhi. She also has a PhD from Harvard. Um, Finally, we have Ranjita Nanda. She's the founder of Park Circle Technologies, which is an IT services firm based in New Jersey. She's also the founder of Best View Reviews, which is a machine learning uh, based product company. And after completing her engineering studies from IIT, Ranjita went on to do MS in computer science from Georgia Tech. And she also worked with Audible and Microsoft before venturing into entrepreneurship. So, very happy and excited to have all of you here. A very warm welcome to you. So, let us get started. Um, so, what we'd like to do is to start with learning a little bit more about all of you. What's been your journey since you graduated from IIT Delhi? How did you foray into the world of entrepreneurship, and just some experiences that you'd like to share throughout this journey? So, why don't we start with you, Pooja? You have three startups under your belt, and as part of your current startup, Avishkar, I believe you've set up over 1,500 robotic labs in India. So please tell us a little bit more about your journey and your various startups.
Thank you, Achal. Thank you so much. Thanks, Pradeep, for organizing this. Excited to be here, and it just seems like we needed a glass of wine right now, or a coffee, because it's like common room conversation with Shivani, Meeta, Shilpi here. It's reminding me of all of the discussions we do around there. But again, coming back to your question about the journey, very very quickly, while I was in IIT, I was doing chemical engineering and realized I didn't want to be chemical engineer for life. So right out of IIT, I joined a strategy consulting firm called Feedback, and then moved to the Bay Area, where I started my first company in enterprise software called Alliance. uh, the company, we raised our angel round of funding and Series A round of funding. And then in the downturn of 2000, 2001, the company went under. Then, like every good engineer, I decided to go do my MBA. Came back to the Bay Area and worked with Adobe for a while in product marketing. Came back to India, and then Shivani and I started IntelliThoughts together, uh, which we ran for almost a decade, when it got acquired by Clay in 2018. And then I joined Avishkar as co-founder. So that's broadly been the journey. In terms of, this whole path of entrepreneurship, it was quite an organic process. I think when in hindsight, I kind of analyze it and think about it, I think it's been a lot about seeing problems in your environment and then trying to build a framework around it as to why that is happening, what could be done about it. Some of them get thrown out, some of them continue to simmer in your head and continue to bother you and keep up at night, and you are go around it and then say, okay, there might be an opportunity to start a business here. And especially with IntelliThoughts, it was like that. My children were little when we came back to India, and early years education was something that we realized as I started to do a little bit of research, that it's like the most important part of your life, but the society does not pay too much attention to it. So that's how we started IntelliThoughts. And I think second high point is the joy of building something from scratch. In the initial few months or years, it is a lot about the idea, refining the idea, then the product and the service, and taking it to market. And then it is, I think, the real joy comes from bringing together a group of people who have shared mission, shared vision. They are seeing the same problems as you are. Kind of, we almost start to think like one body and one mind, in a way. So, and that kind of the joy of building that unique set of individuals that exist only as this organization, is a real high point, through all of these three experiences that I've had as an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Lovely to hear that. Should we move on to Shilpi next? So, Shilpi, you've described yourself as a serial entrepreneur. Sorry, not as a serial entrepreneur, an accidental entrepreneur. So, curious to hear a little bit more about your journey. What was the driver behind Quantum Brands and how you came to this point?
Thanks, Achal, and thank you, Pradeep, for organizing this. Just a quick correction on my intro. Our company actually got acquired by Yum Brands last year, April, so I'm not the CEO anymore, but I play a role of Chief Strategy Officer, and I'm responsible for analytics product solution roadmap at Yum that aligns with what KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell wants to do. So in terms of my journey, I think accidental is the right term, but if you think about my career, I when I after IIT, I everybody was starting as a software engineer, if not strategy consultant, like you guys started. So at that point in time, I don't think I actually even knew what an entrepreneur does. So my company just shipped me over to US in 2001, and I went for MBA in 2005, and got exposed to a lot of business competitions like we all do as part of our MBAs, and I win some of those actually. So and then I got to came to Bay Area, because first few years I was just living in SAC region, which is not necessarily the coolest place to be, right? So once I came to the Bay Area, I got exposed to some of the brightest IITians, in our network, not just Delhi, like I think everywhere. And they all were building their companies, and there was just so much inspiration. And Harpreet, who is my co-founder and is also my life partner, is from IIT Delhi, and we both were consulting at that point in time to top tech companies. He was building marketing platforms, I was building software as a service solutions, and we were like, let's just leverage our backgrounds, our network, and being in Silicon Valley, I think it just kind of pushes you to become an entrepreneur if you even have like an inch of inspiration to do it. So we just we just tried, and we got so much support from our networks from IIT as well as UC Davis. He also went to UC Davis for MBA, so we kind of followed each other. So we got our initial advisory board is from UC Davis. Our academic advisory board was from UC Davis. Our mentors came from IIT Delhi. So as a first time entrepreneur, I think you can't ask for more than that, right? A lot of time you have ideas, but you need people who can really understand what you want to build and support you. So I was very lucky that, I got that network and the people who understood what we wanted to do. And when it comes to highlights in terms of, what it's as a first time entrepreneur, I think you have no idea what you're doing. So once you get into it, then you realize that you didn't sign up for that, maybe. I remember when I was becoming an entrepreneur, my idea of being an entrepreneur was, oh, I'll have so much time. I'll go to conferences and I'll sell my product and I'll do this and I'll do that. And frankly speaking, I didn't attend a single conference being a CEO. I was rather spending 50% of my time in hiring people and training them and retaining them and grooming them. And that, I don't think anybody told me that that's the effort it takes becoming an entrepreneur. Luckily, I love it, but I think if you're a first time entrepreneur, you might hate this too if you're not that a people person, right? So that was the highlight, that I kind of become a expert HR person when I was an entrepreneur. For it's just all the time you have to think about your people, how you're grooming them, how you're keeping them happy. And it's a small company, you don't have a brand, right? So when you don't have a brand, your people, you have to think about everything. Even two people out of 20 say something, you will have to listen to them. It's a small company, right? And in terms of the learning, I would say creating something from scratch is super fun. Like for us, it's software. I know for Meeta, it's her products are so live. I see that on Facebook. I can't do that with software. But just looking at your software, able to do what you want to do with your data, and when you take the outcomes in front of your clients and they make decisions based on that data, and then they shift their millions of dollars from one tactic to another, you feel proud that you were able to create something which can enable large enterprise businesses to do something which they were not able to do earlier. So that feeling is amazing, actually. I really like that. And just being with people and grooming them and seeing all of them being successful. In fact, from Quantum, there are 3 more companies actually started in last 7 years. And 2 of those have been very well funded. So we actually created 3 more entrepreneurs from Quantum. So that's an amazing feeling.
Awesome. And being acquired by the Yum Brands is no small feat. So kudos to you. And nice to hear about, that what really resonated about what you said was the HR piece of it, right? Motivating people in that kind of an environment when you are small and building up is really got to be tough. So thank you. Moving on to Shivani. Shivani is the co-founder with Pooja for IntelliTouts and now has founded Think Startup. So Shivani, would love to hear about your journey. What gave you the idea to set up a venture on entrepreneurship, on teaching entrepreneurship?
Thanks, Achal, and thanks, Pradeep and Achal, for having me here. Really enjoyed the stories of Pooja and Shilpi. I think, you can see the common threads coming out, right? When you talk about women-led startups, talking about teams, talking about, nurturing more entrepreneurs. So, more power to that. My own personal journey, just like Shilpi, a complete accidental entrepreneur, a complete geeky, nerdy kid growing up, very protected, never been, exposed to the world in a significant way. And then ended up in IIT, where again, you kind of say, okay, I'm good at math, I'm good at science, I'm going to become an engineer. So you're just kind of going through that journey. And I graduated in 96. Again, it was the IT boom. So again, did the thing which was done at that time and joined Infi. Infi was an amazing experience. It was a great start to a career. I joined when Infi was 3,000 people. And when I left Infi, it was 30,000 people in a span of 7.5 years. So just being a part of a rapidly growing company kind of pushes you up in terms of your career growth. So in 7.5 years, I literally kind of had that experience of being there, done that. Don't want to do corporate job for another 20, 30 years, but not knowing what to do. And as life turned out, I had moved back to India at that time and was just kind of evaluating my options. Young kids not wanting to go back to corporate life, not seeing the value of spending my life doing that, and trying to figure out the right balance for the next few years while my kids were young. I didn't want to kind of do the whole daycare and getting back. So as it was again an accidental journey of an entrepreneur, but also a little bit thought out, saying what synergizes with my life and Pooja's life at that time, right? We both had young kids, and we saw the gap in early years education and started that, literally not really thinking about it as a that we'll scale it to this scale, or this is the growth path. We didn't have that Excel sheet, but we knew that there is a gap, there is an opportunity, this is something we feel passionate about, we are feeling the pain ourselves, why don't we do something about it? So over the that journey of 8-9 years, it was an amazing entrepreneurial experience. I really see that as kind of personally kind of unboxing myself and really reconnecting with your own capability, right? Education system kind of takes you down a journey saying you're good at this, you're an art science student, you're a science student, you're a commerce student, and you start to think about yourself in that way. It was only when I did my first the startup experience that you kind of get this really open field to say go wherever you want, and you kind of figure out your own strengths. And we were fortunate, Pooja and I, we had very complementary skills, and that gave me the freedom to really discover and do the things that I like to do. And that was the journey of that first journey of being an entrepreneur. um, After this venture got acquired, again did some soul searching, and then the whole Think Startup, the mission of Think Startup is really to connect with kids, the kind of kid that I was in school, right? And say, look, don't lose yourself for 20 years as I did. And can we really help you stay connected with your innate capabilities, get you to experience that joy of creation while you're at school, and really give you that mental map, that confidence that if you have an idea, this is how you can build it, test it, take it to market, give you the skills that you need to become an entrepreneur, all of those things, right? Communication, getting out of your comfort zone, collaboration, 21st century skills. So that's the Think Startup journey that I have been on for the last 2 years now.
Such a wonderful idea to start early at a younger age. And what I found, just noticed, was that almost all of your startups have something to do with education, in teaching. And you also brought up the point, Shivani, on how there are some common women themes. So it may be a coincidence or it may not be, but it's very interesting to observe that. So thank you for sharing. Moving on to Meeta again, in the same theme. Meeta, I've seen you've described your company as 90% child and 10% toy.
Yeah.
So curious to hear more about your journey and what's the inspiration behind Shumi Toys.
Yeah. Thanks, Anchal. Thanks for having me here as part of this panel. Thanks, Pradeep. It's fun to be here. So for me, I think the journey was completely accidental. When I joined IIT, I think I fell in love with engineering. I thought that I'm going to be an engineer for life. I had my own plans thought out that I'll be doing a PhD, I'll go into research. And I kind of went along with it for a long way. Did my master's in the US, worked with Bell Labs, with IBM Research, went back for my PhD at Harvard, again, started at IBM Research. I think I had my life set at that point, to be honest. Never thought that I will start something and try to build a brand. It was when I moved back to India in 2012. I was a mom of two boys at that point. My younger one was 9 months old. Moving back to India, then I think I started observing things very closely, just like Pooja and Shivani, where kind of notice how early education and in the early years of a child life, how that is not an important part what parents pay attention to over here, or is not addressed. So I started looking at it from the play perspective on how do you enable this early childhood development at home through play, because play is a very important part of a child's life, and a lot of learning happens for the child at that point. But as parents, when and those times in India, you would struggle to find the right kind of toys for your child. And being in the US, seeing my older one grow in a different kind of environment and being exposed to philosophies like Waldorf, Reggio Emilia, which pay a lot of attention to experiential play and how you let kids discover and become curious. So I felt that that was a big missing part in India. And somehow I started feeling very passionate about it. And I thought, okay, why not just let's build a brand out of India which can own this space and play. So little did I know that it is a humongous task to build a brand from ground up. I just thought that as you do in research, you identify a problem, you start looking for solutions, and things come out like, and that is the same approach that I took for Shumi. I just decided one day I'm quitting IBM and I'm starting on it. I had no idea where am I going to get my toys from, how are they going to be designed. I just had the idea. I did have conversations even with like Pooja at that time, did get her feedback. It really helped me also understand some parts of the puzzle. And I started putting it together, and we soon found a manufacturer. I found a designer. Things started coming together, and slowly we were able to build a brand. Lot of problems to address were what I understood. Like again, like Shivani mentioned, team is very important. How do you get together a team? Like even Shilpi also mentioned, how do you keep their enthusiasm up, because we still are a very small team. We are a team of 10, but each of one is very passionate about whatever we do at Shumi. It matters a lot to us. So how do you even keep that thing all the time, and each one owns what they're doing? So these were things that I learned on the fly, and it was nothing to do with what I had learned before, but I kind of learned it, and it's been an exciting journey with lots of highs and lots of lows also. But highs have been really fun. Anytime we bring out a product, I think each one of us just looks for the first order of that product. As soon as it comes, it's like a bell rings for all of us that we have got a first order for the new launch that we have done. And it really is exciting. We love what we do. And even I think for me, the other day, just 10 days back, my little one, who's now 10 years old, he comes to me and asks, can I come for an internship in the summer to Shumi? I
Oh,
said, okay,
nice.
what are you going to do at Shumi? He said, I have marketing ideas. I can come and help you market some of the toys. So it was something which I really felt happy about, that he sees that this is something where he can connect to. And then he says to me that, I'm really proud of you because you build a brand. So just that whole thing was a big high for me, and I really felt happy about it. So it's been a good journey, enjoying it.
Wow, nice. So looks like you have some budding entrepreneurs in your house too, and maybe Shivani has a student for her for her venture. So nice to hear. So looks like Harvard lost a researcher, but India we got a entrepreneur. So good to hear your journey, Meeta. We've not connected for a long time, so good
Thanks.
to hear what you've been up to. Um, Moving on to Ranjita. So Ranjita is joining us again from India, which her business is based in New Jersey. So Ranjita, tell us a little bit more about Park Circle Technologies and Best View Reviews.
Hi, Achal, Aditi, Pradeep. Thanks for having me here. So I'm visiting India for a short trip, but I'm based out of New Jersey. And Park Circle Technologies is an IT consulting firm. And uh, basically, Achal, one thing that you kind of missed in your intro was, after working for almost like 14 years, I went back to school to do my exact master's in technology management from Columbia University.
Nice.
And that, experience kind of, really reinvigorated the kind of passion of, doing something different, right? helped me network with a lot of people who, who had been in technology for a number of years, but, were kind of bringing different perspectives. Though after I graduated, I still didn't have the courage to kind of, go into entrepreneurship. And actually, I joined another job at Audible, and I worked there for 1.5 years. But in 2018, I finally thought, if I want to do something of my own, then I can't just keep delaying it, and maybe I just need to go out and do it. Around the same time, I networked with a couple of old IT friends, and we kind of thought that if I need, they were kind of starting their own company, and which was based in India, and I was like, if I need backend support, will you kind of be my partner from that perspective, so that I can have my company in US, but I can't manage hiring resources in India. So they, we kind of agreed to be partners of each other, and that really, kind of helped me, because the firm leverages, kind of resources from India. So, but I couldn't have done that by myself. I couldn't have been in two places, and I needed good partners for that. So that was kind of, my uh, kind of start into entrepreneurship. And the industry that I focused on was, technology needs for government organizations in US. And of course, what helped was, by that time, I was a US citizen. So, you need that to be able to play in that area. And I remember the first RFP that I read, and I was like, okay, I'm going to respond to it. I understand what this is about, but of course I did not win it. Then I kept the way government contracting works is, you have these proposals, you can't meet anybody, you just prepare a response. And on the side, I was kind of doing a couple of small projects with small startup clients, and then after almost, I think, an year of dabbling my feet with a lot of proposals and a lot of writing, and it felt like a never-ending thing. I won my first project with Department of Air Force, who had an air show happening in Maryland, and they wanted to build a website and do social media and digital marketing for it to, market the event. And that was like a big win, because it was like our first government project. It was with the federal government, which is not actually very easy to get into. So that was very, very exciting. And it has been almost 3 years, and so far now we have worked with different organizations, like Department of Army, Michigan National Guard, New Hampshire National Guard, NOAA, some Westchester County, Hudson County, so kind of the portfolio is continuing to grow. And one thing I realized when I worked on those projects was, these are things that maybe a lot of companies can do, but you don't need to be necessarily unique, but you just need to do the work in a quality fashion, so that your clients can give you good reference, because that helps, right? And even if you kind of get a small piece of the pie, the business is there's a lot of business, and you don't necessarily need to come with unique perspective, but do it well, right? And some of my clients, they were so happy with our attention to detail, to kind of figure out what are the things that they need, and sometimes go back and tell them that what you are thinking is going to lead you this way and will cause you these problems, but this is what we suggest, and this is kind of how I would have done it. And of course, leave the decision to them. And sometimes that made them think, oh, these project managers, or these resources are not just doing their job, but going beyond it. And that was amazing to get that feedback. On the best news reviews front, that was another idea that kind of was simmering, and again found great partners on the same. And we built a a website called bestviewsreviews.com using machine learning and natural language processing, which analyzes millions of product reviews and uses feature sentiments to give a shopping guidance tool, and uses the affiliate marketing revenue model. We have been slowly and steadily, getting a foot in that market, and our traffic to the website is continuously growing. We have partnered with Amazon, and very recently we have now partnered with Walmart and eBay, and we're continuing to grow our merchants in the affiliate world. And that's another journey. It's kind of parallel, and it takes a lot of time. But again, when I started, my kids were actually getting to an age where they did not need my full-time attention. They could manage, things on their own. And I thought that was a great time for me to do something of my own. And that was another reason for me to start the entrepreneurial journey.
Got it. Yeah, and very different, very diverse businesses for you. And we'll also be touching upon some of the other challenges, like in terms of how to manage family, how you ladies approach that in the next section. But right now, I'll hand it over to Aditi to take us through the next part of our discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Anchal. Well, I've been mesmerized just listening to you ladies, and so much, so many great insights. I mean, some of you are accidental entrepreneurs, some of you are deliberate entrepreneurs, but all of you are purposeful entrepreneurs, is what I understood, right, from your insights. Some of you are also serial entrepreneurs like Pooja and Shivani. Shilpi and Meeta are still the one-time entrepreneurs, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot more to come. And Ranjita, you are a parallel entrepreneur, so all of you have like very interesting journeys. So I've just really enjoyed listening to you. So why don't we start with Ranjita this time? Tell me about Best View Reviews and Park Circle Technologies. Like, have you, over the last few years since you started, have you stuck with your original thought process? Like, were you targeting the government sector for Park Circle Technologies, or is that something that evolved over time? So how has your journey changed since you started, or are you still with the original idea and developing that?
I think, in some ways it has stayed the same, though, in some ways we had to keep changing kind of, our tactics in terms of, okay, I definitely thought that, I want to kind of dabble in the government sector because, in US, there definitely is a focus on small businesses, minority and women-owned businesses, and there is a federal or, spending that is allocated for that. And I thought, why not take advantage of that? Though I realized that it was not easy to kind of show that you are a capable company, right? And we had to kind of, then keep shifting our effort on, okay, we will do some additional projects as well so that we can show that, we have the portfolio, right? And the two efforts, did not require the same type of skill set, because this was an all RFP based, world, whereas that there, you had to kind of talk to people and, figure out, okay, what is it that we can do for you? I know this, or I can do this, or, just give me anything. And, we'll kind of, but, again, it kind of somehow grew. And I would say sometimes it's right place, right time, etc. Right? Even for proposals, a lot of times I'll feel like, okay, I don't think, our company is going to win this because, I'm sure we lack this or lack that. And sometimes, what I also did was I would go to the opening of those proposals, because there are some government organizations that will just do it in a complete transparent manner. And I would realize that actually there were only 2 responses that came, and there were a 50% chance that, I could have won it, even if, I didn't have all the, check marks, right? Because finally, if they get 2 or 3 responses, they're going to choose the best out of whoever has responded, right? So then I realized that, okay, I can't let go of all opportunities if I feel like, I'm not meeting all the requirements that they're asking for, and I have to kind of keep going. And that was kind of a great learning. Even for Best Views Reviews, right? Initially we had started with slightly different approach on how we're gonna analyze reviews and how much manual effort we're gonna put in analyzing those, and and while we were working on the machine learning models to see the output that is generated, is it really readable? Because it was machine generated, and sometimes we had to um, keep tweaking with the models and algorithms. And there was a point where we said, the machine generated language is not really as if everything is correct in terms of grammar, etc. So why don't we then let some manual editing happen through humans? And then, as we kind of kept building the models, kind of kept reducing the manual effort. So again, some things stayed, some things kept changing. As we got more resources, obviously the way in which we were approaching things also changed.
That's awesome, Ranjita. And one thing that you shared that kind of stuck with me is, you kind of were doubting yourself, right, in the beginning, whether you met all the requirements. And this is something that I've read in the context of even corporate jobs, like women don't apply for a job unless they meet all the basic requirements and most of the preferred requirements, right? So I wonder if there's a gender angle here too. But that would be interesting to explore.
So true, and I have seen it, again and again at several places. It's like we always undervalue ourselves, and we think, and I have to kind of keep reminding myself of that, every single day. And still, there are days where I feel like, no, but am I like kind of faking it, because but then it's like, am I kind of having the imposter syndrome of, I am who. But then you have to kind of keep reminding yourself that men don't do that. Like, they'll apply for jobs where that's their aspirational job, whereas women will say, oh, do I meet at least 80% of the requirements? But then you learn on the job, and you just need to be able to think that I can do it if I want to. But like, it's not easy. It has not been easy for me as well.
Absolutely. So maybe, Aanchal, this can be one of the INSquare sessions in the future, imposter syndrome among women. It applies to both corporate and entrepreneurs. So thank you, Ranjita, for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Let's go to Meeta. I'm kind of going in the reverse order. And Meeta, I've been very fortunate to have been a part of your journey a little bit closer, than most. So I know kind of, when you jumped in sort of feet first, and, we're trying to figure out all these different connections, finding a manufacturer, designer, like you mentioned. Tell me about like your initial vision for Shumi. I know you wanted to have toys for the boys to play with, but how has Shumi evolved? I also see over the years you've partnered with a lot of similar businesses that align with your philosophy, and you ventured into a few different things. So tell me about your initial Shumi vision and where you are and where you see that going.
Yeah, so I think, you're right. I mean, Aditi, you've been a very close part of the journey. Like, right when Shumi started, that's when you moved to India too, and we used to have weekend conversations and brainstorm. So many where I think you were the first person who asked me that, where's your business plan? Like, what are you going to, how are you thinking about these things? And like, okay, do I need a business plan? Can't I just do it without it? Was my answer. But I think a lot of things evolved. Like when I started Shumi, it was like, my whole focus was on getting a line of wooden toys because I thought that is something which I want to work with. But I also, on the way, realized that while I mean that would still remain that would remain this main focus, but there are different things we will need to evolve with to scale up the business, to give different cost prices over here, because wood being a expensive material to work with, and then India being a price sensitive market. So those things also started evolving for us, like understanding what is the product development going to look like. Earlier our focus was more on the toddlers and the like 2 year plus. We also, like on the way, realized that we need to catch our the parent a little earlier in the baby stage. How do we expand our baby range? So we started focusing on that. So I think many things evolved, like from completely wooden toy brand. We also then introduced card games, puzzles, lower price points, like I said, to give a entry level products for the customer. And I think one big evolution that happened for us was in the pandemic when COVID hit us. So we realized that we don't want to just be a toy brand in the very traditional sense. We want to be a brand beyond toys, because parents also need to know what play and learning is, and we want to be that brand which helps them understand this space holistically and not just through a product is our end, where we want the customer to, I mean, our parent to purchase our products, which are toys, but we also want to be a trusted brand with them. And that is one big evolution that we did over the last 2 years, that where as a brand we have been very conscious about the different talk points, the different sessions, different content that we can put out with the for the parents, because I think we realize that there's a lot of education required to even build a brand in India out of this. Because while US is a developed market, parents, I mean, there's a lot more understanding and a lot more involvement from the parents. India as a market, we still needs a lot of uh, uh, awareness building kind of activities, which I think has evolved a lot. Actually, the pandemic kind of accelerated that for India too. So that's been a good thing. The other thing that we also evolved, like earlier when I started, I thought this is going to be a brand out of India for India, but we also realized that India is a good market and we should build the brand, but I think we have a bigger market globally, with again US or Europe being markets. And we then started exploring US to start with, and then also UAE. So these are two markets that have been doing well for us, and we want to also grow these markets because these are developed markets as a market also, and a very big market. And our products, again, that was a good decision that we took way on, was that not to be Indian in the look and the feel of the product. So that has helped us, and I think that is what we will continue to do and push.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Meeta. And I'm telling you, like your target consumer for Shumi products is a child, but I'm telling you, I've thoroughly enjoyed all toys that I've played with, especially on Ninja, like the balancing ninjas. And so it's a family, it's really a family product is what I'm going to say. I mean,
I think Aditi, remember that was, I think together we all brainstormed it. I write from the structure to the name and how we wanted to respond to it. So it's a very close product for all of us, I mean, including you also. So yeah.
Absolutely. I know. I'm just thrilled that I was part of your journey in some way. Thank you, Meeta, for sharing. Let's go to Shivani. So Shivani, going from IntelliThoughts, which was early years, going into Think Startup, which is geared towards, kids that are older or young professionals that are thinking about startups, and how do you prepare them, for that journey? How was that transition for you, and have you pivoted since you started Think Startup? Have you, were there market circumstances like Meeta talked about, the pandemic? Like, were there influences, internal and external, that helped shape Think Startup to what it is today?
Yeah, absolutely. So Aditi, the journey from IntelliThoughts to Think Startup is fairly simple, right? My kids grew up. So it's really about feeling that pain. And when my kids were young, I felt that pain of not having high quality early years education in such, and the times when it's so important for kids to have the right experiences. And then as my kids got into their teenage years, I started to really see the gap in the education system. I started to at a higher grade, right? The teenagers are so different today. They are learning at a different pace. They are learning on Khan Academy. They are learning on YouTube. The world has changed completely. Kids are on, YouTubers. They are trading in the stock market. They are living in the real world. And the school system is still stuck in the industrial age, right? Nothing has changed there. And even the schools that want to have a more progressive curriculum, they don't know how to do it. So even though CBSE has introduced entrepreneurship as a curriculum, we hear this over and over again. The teachers say, how do we teach entrepreneurship? Because they just don't have the know-how. You can't learn it out of a textbook, right? So that was the journey from IntelliThoughts to Think Startup. In terms of pivots, absolutely. I think every morning you wake up and say, where do I pivot next? Because things are changing, right? And you, as an entrepreneur, you know what you want to create. You have that North Star. And I think that stays constant, right? And for me, that has been, how can we bridge the gap between what's happening in schools from 6th to 12th grade and what's happening in the real world? And how can we really kind of give these kids real life, real world skills, give them opportunities to express themselves, because they are ready. They know what they want to do. They just don't have the avenue. The parents will tell them, pado, pado, pado. The teachers will tell them, marks lao, right? But they know that they can do something more. We absolutely say education is the, your safety net. But beyond that, explore, right? You have hours beyond that as well. Don't spend it gaming. So so the journey of saying this is what we want to create, this is our North Star, has stayed the same. The path has changed pretty much on a monthly basis, I would say. We started just pre-COVID, Feb 2020, and we had tied up with WeWork to run weekend sessions, and lockdown happened. So right from there to saying now we have to do this virtually, and all of our curriculum that we had created was in classroom curriculum, and it required kids to be in the same room with the trainer. Now how do we kind of take this online, and how do we make that experience as effective as we had planned it in a physical world? From there to saying what is the program structure, what is the student's life experience, how much time are they able to give. I think everything has been a learning journey. You kind of do experiments you have a hypothesis, you go into the market, you experiment, you try to see whether the product you're taking to the market is fitting, and then you change it again and again and again. Also in terms of channels, we started completely B2C, and then figured out that there is a school channel, and then we tried that. Now there is a government channel, so we have a couple of discussions happening with a few education departments at state level. So I think the journey continues to change because the market is changing. Also, you keep looking for opportunities, you cross paths with synergistic organizations or people who share that kind of mission, and you kind of work with them. So the journey continues to change based on your experiments in the market and your learnings from there, and also the people you meet along the way and the opportunities that come along the way. You just you have to keep adapting as a startup.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a couple of things that really kind of resonate with me is, one, you said, I mean, the environment and the exposure that these kids have, the teenagers, especially these years, it's way different from the world that we grew up in. In fact, I was blown away when one of the projects that my older one did last year was the role of AI in racial profiling in the criminal justice system. I was like, okay, hold on. First of all, you're talking AI, then you're talking racial profiling, and then you're talking criminal justice system. I was like as a 15 or 14-year-old, I had no clue about any of those, right? So, I mean, I think very early on, I realized that we are not equipped to deal with their needs in this day and age. So I'm connecting with you offline for sure, Shivani, to get some ideas and some fundas, because the other thing that resonates is I would rather, my kids spend time in doing something creative and understand how to, get on an entrepreneurial journey rather than, spend time gaming. So I'm definitely pinging you offline. Awesome. Thank you, Shivani. Let's go to Shilpi. And again, Shilpi, with Quantum, similar to Shumi, I did get a chance to be involved, in some form in your journey. And, I remember those discussions we used to have with the go, no go decisions and, all the key moments. So I know there have been pivots along the way, but you've really developed the product over, I want to say, a decade, right? Maybe give or take, to something that was acquired by Yum Brands, and to Anchal's point, right, that's no mean feat. So tell us a little bit about your pivots along the way, and were you able to stick with the idea that you started with, and how has your journey evolved?
Oh yeah, so yes, it's been almost 8 years last year, the day we got acquired. So we got funding in 2013. We got $1 million funding from a strategic investor. And there was a roadmap, and the roadmap was quite broad at that point in time. And luckily we got our first 2 clients were pretty large clients, Target and Kimberly-Clark, and that kind of set the path for us that what kind of clients we will be working. We never planned that we're going to have a large enterprise clients as the target client, but it just so happened. And when Ranjita was talking about her first RFP, I remember my first RFP too. And I still have a photo of the check that we got from Target, like first $500,000 project that we got. And we didn't have the product at that time. We just wanted to build while working with them. And we were building that like a pretty broad roadmap that we were trying to build and solving a specific problem for Target. In 2015, due to various strategic misalignments with our investor, who was a strategic investor, it's just we had to give half million kind of back to them, because our deal was, first half was a investment, and the second tranche investment was a debt. So because there was a misalignment with the investor, we had to give that money back in 2015, and that was a turning point for our company, because that suddenly, when you get the money as a first time entrepreneur, you're like, you have to spend all of it, right? And we were like on a spending spree of like hiring people, and our scope was pretty broad. And then suddenly when the money was asked, we're like, okay, now we can't build it anymore, so we have to kind of trim it. And then we also have to give half a million back, which as a startup you will never have that kind of a cash. We luckily were able to sell the specific portion that we were building for Target. So they bought that portion, they kind of took the talent acquisition, some of our team member went to Target, we trimmed whatever platform was left, and we then just focused on marketing analytics. And that was the first pivot, just pushed pivot happened to our company. And I had to do my first set of firing conversations. It was very, very difficult. Like hiring is easy, but firing is super difficult. Like hiring, I was telling initially, is difficult, but firing is even more. So that's when actually we started just completely focusing on marketing analytics roadmap. Still the same thing, but little leaner. And it didn't change. Most likely, I would say how we are selling is a little bit different, but the features are pretty much similar. I would say the first set of roadmap any first time entrepreneur will build, like either you're building something new, so you would know what you are building, but we were building something where uh, traditional companies were already in the market, like Nielsen, IRI, market share. So those companies were already built the platform. So my first set of features were very similar to what they might have built, a little bit better. So I initially looked a lot more on competition, but I think once you start building your own product, then you start listening more to your customers, and then you build a right balance, that how much you want to listen to the customer versus how much you want to track your competition. And I think that's a decision as an entrepreneur you have to make, that what is the right set of features. And that's what I learned, I would say, initial years. And also I think you learn as a first time entrepreneur, which is very hard to say no. So you generally say yes to most of your client, because that syndrome, imposter syndrome, that Ranjita was talking about, right? So we have to prove ourselves that we can do everything, and because we're small and nimble, we generally say yes to everything, try to push our team and get things done. But then I think what I learned is how to say no to specific kind of clients. I think you build that muscle pretty early on in enterprise business, that who are not the right clients for you, who are not profitable for you, who are the one who sucks the most time and doesn't give you enough dollar back, right? So that learning was pivotal in terms of what kind of clients you don't want. And we learned that in like not very intuitively, but I think in a hard way. I think we learned it in few years, and now we are very, very sure we understand pretty early on whether this is the company, this is the market, this is the business we want to sell to or not. And that's how I think we made pivots in terms of what our assumptions were. And I think Shivani was talking about the sheet, and Meeta was talking about the business plan. I had all of that. I had the business plan, I had like projections. And if I look at it, it's laughable. My assumptions were so wrong. I was so far off from everything what I did. So I think initially you build a plan, but actually you really truly don't know what those assumptions going to be. Your sales always look like this, and it's not always like that, right? So I think you will make business plans, but I think you should go back and truly modify it based on your new assumptions, new cost drivers, new profit drivers. It's a fun learning as a first time entrepreneur. um, so those are the things I'll say were interesting in my journey.
Yeah, I mean, listening to this, I can now tell why you guys are all addicted to entrepreneurship. Like, there's just so much excitement and so much learning in all of your journeys that you've described. And Shilpi, I mean, in hindsight, obviously it was very stressful at the time when you were asked for the money back. But in hindsight, I feel like that was a very positive thing, right? Because it gave you the confidence that somebody like Target bought something that you had built. So clearly you were, building something meaningful, and then you were able to sort of build on the remaining platforms. So yeah, I'm sure at that time it was super stressful, but in hindsight, I mean, might have been the best thing that
Right.
happened.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
you should meet my co-founder. He lost half of his hair. So yeah. I mean, we I didn't that much.
Incidentally, I do know him, and I know that's the truth. But okay, all right. No, thank you for sharing, Shilpi. It was great to hear about your journey as well. Going to Pooja now. So I know from IntelliThoughts, again, similar to Shivani's transition from the early years now to Avishkar, again, both in the education domain. But with Avishkar, I know when we were talking earlier, you had a plan around in-person sessions, kind of like what Shivani was saying, right? With the students and instructors being in the same place, and you had to pivot as well. So tell us a little bit about the pivots that you've had to make.
Yeah. So, I'll add a little bit to what Shivani said around, the consumer and the customer of education. If you look at any other industry, it is built around the needs of the customer and the consumer. Education is that one industry where the consumer has long moved on. Our children are digital natives. They are consuming information online. If I ask my daughter, I mean, if we're doing a problem together, and I'll say, I think this might be right. So, okay, let me check. She'll go online and check for the answer, or she'll go to a YouTube video and do it. And we are still stuck in the same old mode of doing that siloed geography, history, English, physics, and that's how we run it, right? There was a study done in the US asking children about the career options that the career choices that they wanted to make, and they found that over 35%, close to 40% children wanted to be YouTubers, Instagrammers, bloggers, much more than they wanted to be lawyers. Remember, we all wanted to be astronauts and, lawyers and engineers and doctors. So, what their aspirations have changed, their needs have changed, their consumption habits have changed, but education still stays the same. And um, the one thing that we can be sure of, that technology is taking over their lives and everything. I was just playing around with Oculus Rift just the other day, and I can tell you, just a 5 minutes of be using that Oculus Rift and coming out, it was disorienting. And I can see, and after reading a Ready Player One or a Snow Crash, I can see how once you get immersed in that world, you would not want to come out. And whatever we do, this is going to be the reality of our children's lives, right? They are going to get to this technology. We've heard about this fact that most of the jobs that people are doing today, 80% of them did not exist 20 years ago, right? Now you see people working in Google, Facebook, Amazon. These didn't exist 20 years ago. Facebook came in 2004, YouTube came in 2001. So, Snapchat, all of that. For the next generation of jobs, the change will happen over 5 to 10 years. And we are already seeing teenagers becoming Bitcoin miners, NFT artists. They are already participating very actively in creator economy. If you go to OpenSea, you'll see like 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds putting up their music, putting up their art, putting up all of that there. So I think with Avishkar, we realize that technology is extremely important, but hands on learning is also important. And so, coming to the kind of journey of pivoting, right? So that mission and the goal stays the same, that children need to know about next gen technologies which are not being addressed in school. which are like robotics or artificial intelligence or IoT, app dev, coding, and so on. And the way we approached it was to have robotics kits and electronics kits that were programmable so that children can actually make autonomous robots themselves or program their own home automation software. They can create their own spy alarms and use a moisture sensor to create a robotic plant watering mechanism. And the model, so the north star is that, but business model has evolved and pivoted so many times. When before COVID hit, we were working actively with schools. We have about 1,500 school labs set up across India, where we would train the teachers and children in these and run after school programs. But with COVID, we moved to online classes, live coaching, cheaper products available so that parents could buy them, and hand holding for children. And now what we are seeing is that as a lot of it has moved online, children are keen to share their projects, share what they are building with everyone, participate. So we used to have one of the largest robotics competitions in India called Avishkar League, where children would come together and build these projects. And now because it's happening online, a lot of children want to collaborate online. So now gradually we are moving towards becoming a platform where anybody who wants to build and anybody who wants to create new technology projects can share with one another and collaboratively build these. So I guess as an entrepreneur, there is like a core problem that you're trying to solve, and you continue to solve that. But around you, the market changes, the customer needs changes and evolve. And then there is the role of the serendipity, right? There are some opportunities that come your way and which could be big. And
my friend Anchal is hosting a webinar with.
Sorry.
I think somebody unmuted accidentally. Go ahead, Pooja.
So I think the role of the serendipity is also huge there, where you kind of were going in a direction and start to move in another direction. But especially in today's day and age, pivoting is just part and parcel of running a business, because change is happening really fast around us.
Yeah, no,
है ना कि it is a question of inclusion. हाँ, अब देखो, after all, men are also, entities. I mean, they also have a right for inclusion, no, for equal opportunities. So that is
All
my
right.
short
Okay.
answer.
On that note, we will move on to challenges that women face exclusively. So I know we have time for maybe one more round. So let's go around the table quickly. If go around, and if every one of you could tell me like one challenge that you face, that you felt you faced, being a woman, and it could be anything from seeking funding to bootstrapping your company, managing a family, starting a business from scratch. Your choice, but would love to hear, kind of the one challenge you faced, and what kind of any words of wisdom in terms of how you resolve that challenge, or how you are seeing the workplace changing, and how you see those challenges can get resolved in the future. So let's start with Pooja.
So, Achal, personally, I feel like, I have not experienced this kind of discrimination and subconscious, but I think these biases do exist. And a few examples that I can give you, similar question, and I've still not found a good answer to this, where they'll say, oh, you are raising funding, why don't you ask your husband for it? He's a venture capitalist. I mean, why the hell would he want to, why would we want to do that? Because it is going to undermine my credibility and it is going to be a conflict of interest for him. So, but the same thing most of the time doesn't happen the other way around. The second thing is, around decision making. I have found it even when we were running in Teletots, we were trying to sign up leases quite a bit, or negotiating with people. They would always be looking over our shoulder to say, okay, so where is the decision maker? So like they would think, acha, you are the gatekeeper here and the decision maker is coming behind you. So, and half of them would assume that the husband is also involved in the business. They would just assume it. And you kind of just move on and say, "ठीक है," you just take it in your stride and move on. And by now you become used to such things. So, so I think those are kind of the two things, I'd say personally. I notice it around me. In terms of kind of the message, or what I would say is, it helps to know the game that you are playing, and know the rules of the game. Um, when I was running my first startup, we raised our angel funding and our Series A funding, and we realized that. And I personally, the message that I took away from that was, we kept pivoting very quickly based on what the investors were telling us, and we changed direction so many different times. And that is, that is kind of, that comes with there are strings attached to taking money. So the second time around, when Shivani and I were starting out in Teletots, we were both very clear that we didn't want to take a single penny from anyone, because our goal at that time was flexibility. We knew very well that if you take money, there are strings attached to it. You're getting onto a treadmill that only keeps going faster and faster. And when you need flexibility, you don't you don't you want to be in a business which is a cash flow business. We didn't need that much money and capital, so we made decisions accordingly. And now at Avishkar, I'm back to raising money, and I know what are the pros and cons of that, right? And building a large scalable global business, and that will need capital. So I think a very important thing is to know what game you are playing and what are the rules of the game. The worst thing is to get stuck in the middle. And when I mentor entrepreneurs, I find at times, the fundraising has been glamorized so much that if you have not raised funds, then it means you're not even running a business, kind of. And a lot
Yes.
of women who are in that kind of, the second startup that we did, when we are, then you're kind of written off as a, they're not even running a business there because they've not raised funding. And that's not true.
Yes.
That's a bootstrap business. You're playing by your rules, and you're running a business and an enterprise
You have
all.
more control.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, I think, it's very, it's important. It helps to know the game, the rules of the game, and then not get bothered by what PR is happening or what people are saying, and that helps you stay true to your mission and why you're doing it.
Thank you, Pooja. Very well put.
I
Moving
just want
on.
to quickly
Yeah, go ahead.
add, I agree with that so much that, somehow the funding world has been glamorized so much. And I look at so many companies and I feel like, you are getting funding at such ridiculous valuations, and you're just burning money. And I don't think your business is successful, and it's just really interesting.
Ranjita, do you want to go next with, one challenge that you faced and how you dealt with it?
So I think and this kind of more of self learning and kind of understanding yourself. Sometimes the most challenge you face is with yourself, because you're trying to balance so many things, and you have to see what are you doing right. And and I think women face that in different ways, in terms of how they're raising their family, how much time they're allocating to children, at what stage of their life do they feel like they're ready to take time from one place and put it to another. And I really like this saying that your work, your family, and your health are like three balls that you're juggling with, and every few weeks or months you're like one ball is falling. It's like either your own health or uh, the kind of the circumstances that your family is in, irrespective of all the support that you're getting from people around you. You kind of yourself think that you're guilty of letting that third ball drop. And I feel like um, I have faced that at several points, and I have kind of made decisions according to that. And it's a continuous treadmill from that perspective. And you just have to kind of somehow feel that or kind of like learn that there is time to handle that one or two balls that are still in your hand, and you will catch the third one in rotation
eventually. Very flat. I love that analogy as well. I think it's called the 5 balls analogy or something. There's two more, but I forget what they are as well. Moving on to you, Shilpi. Any final words? The challenges or final words of wisdom, whatever you'd like to share.
So from challenges, I'll just say, like, if we talk about Pooja's experience, it's different. Or like they were being expected to have their husbands in the business, while my husband was part of my business, right? So then there is another kind of problem if your husband is there. So when we went for our first few funding pitches in 2013, there was always this question about thinking as if this is a family business, because both partners are there. So are you guys really serious about it? It's a technology business, and do you really think you can do it? And how many kids you have, like kind of trying to guess whether you have kids, you're planning for kids, and if we give you money, how will that impact the business? So there was that notion of husband and wife being in a business, and how would that run along with the family. So there were concerns. We could see that in the questions, and I'm sure if anybody is going it for first time, they might face those kind of questions. And you have to be just upfront. You will have to tell them what you're thinking, whether you're planning for second kid. If you are, you should tell. And it's the very good thing what I'm seeing in recent years, that women are raising funds while they are pregnant. So that's changing. Like obviously there's a long way to go. We talked about 2.6% of total funding, but within that 2.6%, pregnant women are raising funds too. So things have changed in last 9 years. Another one was, because being first time founder, there were a lot of questions about um, credibility of building the product, right? So it's about you're not from Yahoo, you're not from Google's, and you have been a consultant. So can you make that product? Can you really roll it out? So there is a credibility question. Yes, you have a vision, you have a concept. Would you be able to build it? So there were some credibility issues for us as a first time founder, and I believe those are the reasons. But when we got the exit, the funniest part is this, that I got email from some of those investors, because I always kept in touch with them, and I kept giving them updates about the product release and some wins about my new clients. So they were like, okay, tell me, what are you doing next, and let's connect and talk about it. So that is the perception that I changed in the last 8 years of running this company, that where I was questioned about, what are you building? Can you build it? To, okay, what are you doing next? We would love to hear and be part of it. So I think that takes time. It doesn't happen right away, but I think I was successful in changing that perception. From a takeaway point of view, I'll say, it's very hard to be a co-founder with your life partner, right? So if you do not have a relationship of equals, never get into it, right? Harpreet and I always had a relationship of equals. So doing that business as a business partner, it was never an issue like that. It'll impact our life. So a lot of people ask me like how I did it. I think it's the best co-founder you can find if it is relationship of equals. So I would not have done it differently. But my next startup, I don't think I'm gonna do it with him. I'm just gonna go myself because we both have different interests. And like Pooja is a serial entrepreneur here. So I now know being a serial entrepreneur, what does that mean? So my second company is gonna look very different. Not very, very much what I did in the first time, more personal, more controlled. So and Harpreet is gonna do his own. So it'll be interesting. I would say I think someone, I think Shivani mentioned that whenever you get into a venture, it's your own journey, so build it. And I will say the same thing, right? When you're thinking of your startup, just be close to the reason, and then just make it part of your life, right? Don't even feel that you're doing something. It's not a work, it's just you doing you. So just go for it.
Nice. Very insightful, Shilpi. And thank you for being honest and upfront as well. How about you, Shivani? What's your take on some of these challenges, maybe unconscious biases that you've referred to in the past as well?
So I'll be really quick. I think we're running out of time. I just want to bring out one dimension to this, because as we are sitting here, I think we're a very privileged lot. We have been to IITs at the time we have been, and we are really, we have by our circumstances been empowered to think of ourselves as equal right from the get-go, right? So a lot of us don't actually see things as challenges. Today, we work with girls from all across the country, from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 towns, even from villages. And I can tell you the challenges are very different. I think there are tiers of challenges. So if you talk to tier 1 city kids now, the girls will say, look, we don't think there is a difference. We feel we can do anything. We don't even think of ourselves. We don't even think that, oh, I'm, different from the boys, and I can't do anything that the boys can do. But as soon as you start moving away a little bit, you start to see girls who say, look, I want to do robotics, but my parents, Pooja, we were on a session with girl students recently, and one of the girls came up and said, I'm so passionate about it, but I just don't have the environment in my house to support me. Take it further to villages, and we do a skill building there as well. And there you will find, when we ask the kids to think about challenges, they come up with things. The girls talk about safety, right? The girls talk about access to basic education. So I think there's a long journey to go. As much as we can do at our at the places where we are at, I think we should set those role models for girls from all across the nation, because we really are the women who have had the opportunities which a lot of other girls right now don't have in our country.
Very true, very true. And I know we are just around time. So Meeta, last but not the least, any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, so I think just I would like to add one difference over here that it's been a single founder journey for me. So there's always been this question that, oh, this is a single founder startup. Are you going to make it? And then again, the other question that comes up is like, oh, your husband is a management consultant. Is he joining you soon? But I think I always think through that and say that if I could make it so far, I can make it even further. And like Pooja said that while, fundraising is always there, but it's a very fine line to walk, because with fundraising comes a lot of pressure. And I think for us, and for me, I have taken this decision that Shumi stays true to its core. If we don't need to run on a treadmill, if that is what it will take to get the funds, we want the right partners to come on board, because we have a mission that we are after, and not just to scale it from 1 to 100 in a very short time with a very insane valuation that is going around. So that is something which a conscious choice that we have made. And I think it's a difficult choice also. At times we do feel that it's a difficult choice because you always are in need of funds. But I think somehow things do shape up, and we have been on the path that we want to be. One thing that I've learned in this journey, which I did not learn early, and I used to be very emotional about it, because each startup, we all feel emotional about what we are doing. And I, being an over emotional person, which I think Aditi also knows very well, I used to take it quite personally. But I also learned from a friend that the startup is, whatever happens, I mean, when you're doing something, it's not about you. There are many things that come around. If there's a high or there's a low, it's not about something that you have done. There are a lot of external things that play a part, and then one should be able to see that and go keep doing what they are doing. And that is something which I have started incorporating, and I hope to keep doing that too. Yeah, so that is one thing that I've learned along the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meeta, and thank you for all of you for being here today, and especially for being so open and vulnerable about your journeys. I think that's when we gain most from hearing people like you is, when you come to the table with that level of vulnerability, and it's not always easy. So really appreciating sharing all the insights you gave today from, the importance of building partnerships, motivating your teams, managing and, embracing the tech disruptions in your respective industries, and then, pivoting during different points of time during COVID. So again, I appreciate all that you've shared. Anything you'd like to add, Aditi?
No, I was actually typing it in the chat window, but I will say it out loud. I mean, all of you ladies have been so inspiring, and just listening to all your insights and your journeys. And I'll echo what Anchal said, right? I mean, we didn't sugarcoat anything. We kind of, laid it out like it was, because that's very important for the other women listening to this, right? I mean, not to have that, oh, it's all going to work out great, and, that kind of messaging, because that can be counterproductive as well. So, again, very thankful for you all to take time on a Saturday evening, morning, depending on where you are. And Ranjita, you just flew to India, so really appreciate all of your time and your insights. And I am sure you have inspired a ton of women entrepreneurs, and we'll be sharing this session recording as well, so I'm sure many more will listen to it and keep getting inspired. Thank you, and kudos to you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Aditi,
you.
anything
Thank
from
you,
you?
Achal.
All right. Sounds good.
Aditi, Kanchal,
Bye,
yeah.
everyone. Good
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.